Okay. The first question, Frank, is how did you originally get hired by Right Way and or Death Row?
Interesting and good question. I actually, at that time in 1995, it was around August, I was at work and I got a phone call from a friend of mine. His name is KJ, the limo driver for Tupac when he was picked up from the airport, and they took him to Pan Am Studios in Tarzana to up on that first track with Dr. Dre, California Love. When KJ had dropped him off at the studio, he was in the lobby, waiting, just picking it. The guard that was on duty that day, his name was Cedric. Cedric and I were in the Marine Corps together, and Cedric and I, we probably hadn't seen or spoken to one another in about maybe 10 years. Close to 10 years. No, not 10 years. I take that back. 89 to 95. Last time when he and I had spoke. KJ, Cedric got to talking. Cedric said to KJ, he was like, man, he goes, you look just like a partner of mine, a guy I know. And KJ said, oh, yeah, who is that? He goes, oh, man, his brother I was in the Marine Corps with. His name is Frank. KJ go, Alexander? And he was like, yeah, you know him? And that conversation just like took off between them, and KJ gave Cedric my number. Cedric called me up the next day or either that evening, and he and I hooked up and asked me, hey, man, what you doing? Got to talking and catching up on old days. Said, hey, I'm working for Death Row Records. Heard of Death Row Records? And I was like, like Snoop Dogg and Dog Pound, Tupac, and, I was like, okay. And like, well, let's hook up, man. Let's do lunch, And I said, all right, cool. So he says, can you still carry a gun? Because he knew I was a cop. But, yeah. So he and I, we hooked up about a day or so later, went out to lunch. Said, man, they're paying good. Gary, you want to work because I can get you hired. That's how it happened. He set it up. The owner of Right Way Security, which was Reggie Wright, who owned it, and ironically, his office manager, one of my homeboys from Chicago that I grew up with from the age of like 8 years old. And when you take that, just take that scenario right there. Got KJ, who was my homeboy that I was bodybuilding with at the time, picks Tupac up because he's a limo driver, take him to the studio, and then they get to talking with the studio guard, who I was in the Marine Corps with for 10 years, and then he and I hook up, and we get to talking, and he tell me to go hook up the interview, get the interview hooked up with Reggie. He hooked it up. I go to the office, leave my resume, and on the back of my resume at the time had a picture of me on it. His office manager came in, saw the resume, the application. He told Reggie, he was like, I know this dude, man. This is like my brother. He was like, what? He was like, yeah. He goes, we grew up together. So when you take that scenario, I believe, and I look at it like this, it's our path of life. Bible in Psalms 139, verse 13 through 16, it talks about the path of our life and God knowing us from the day that we were conceived while we were in our mother's womb, what our lives were going to be like and the things that were going to happen. It was just a matter of time that those connections happen, like connecting the dots. Being Tupac's bodyguard from working in that studio, relationship of those guys that I had over the course of 5 years, 10 years.
Okay. So When you came in, were you basically assigned straight to Tupac, or were you doing numerous artists at the same time?
No, actually, the way it was set up was when you came into the studio, you were a studio guard, and you worked 16 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like about 20 of us, and everyone worked the studio, but you had like some of the main guys that worked it, and then you had people that worked it part-time. That's why there were so many people. And when the artist was going to do video shoots or makeup, things like that, Reggie would take the better of 20-something guards, put them on the artists as bodyguards. And the first one that I actually ended up bodyguarding was the Dog Pound, Nate Dogg, and Tupac came in and out of the studio, and as we working in the studio, when we would see the artists pull up, getting ready to come in, we would have to go out and greet them to walk them into the studio for safety precautions. And we would let the artists go by at a wand that we would wand all of their homies or their guests or whoever it was that was with them coming into the studio, so nobody would have any weapons or anything like that as they came. So that's how the studio actually worked. You ended up being studio guard and info guard that put on artists.
Okay. When you were first coming in, looking back on it now, was the atmosphere different when you first came in around 95 as opposed to right before everything ended up going down in Vegas that night in September? Was there a change in the mood at the label, or was everything all good until the problems started?
You know what? Things started changing, and it's unfortunate that they did. But things started changing with fuel being added to the fire, right? Like a party light. You turn your stove on and it's on low, and you have the control to turn it up higher and higher from low to medium to it's going to reach its maximum being at high. Throw gasoline on it, you're going to start a fire. You're going to burn something down. And you had Tupac already having that type of temperament. Tupac, like a car has a governor on it. Governor is what controls a car from going over the speed that you want it to go, 0 to 140 or whatever the car may be up to. Well, Tupac didn't have a governor, so his speed would go from low to medium to high to over the top if you rubbed him wrong or if you pissed him off. And as the atmosphere in the studio started to change from being calm on low, it was because someone was there raising his temperature, like on a thermostat, raising that temperature. More and more that temperature would go up. The atmosphere of the studio started changing, but there was someone that was causing it, that was changing that atmosphere. It was just the fact that Pop wanted things done his way. It, not to be special, but he was the main artist. And him being the main artist, he, from 1995 to 1996, things just started changing. Like Dr. Dre, who was in the studio all the time, like I earlier, Tupac got out of jail. First thing he did is went in and he did California Love, Part 1, at 15. Dr. Dre was around all the time. Snoop was main artists. They were around all the time. Mm-hmm. Different artists came to the studio all the time. The atmosphere was cool. Everything was good. Like you said, going south. But it took a year It literally took a year for things to just start transforming from being low, medium, high, overboard, over top.
Right.
So it took its course. That year, unfortunately, last year of his life.
Mm-hmm. As he was there and you were around him, did you see the transition from him coming in to, from what many say, Suge turning people against, let's say, Dr. Dre, when he was going to depart and there was the incident with the Sam Snead scuffle and whatnot at the meeting? Could you see the trend of Suge putting Tupac on a higher pedestal than everybody else, or was he already on that pedestal as soon as he arrived?
Well, you got to realize this. The two main artists was Snoop and Tupac, and they were the main artists, the biggest artists on the label. Snoop had a Doggy Style. It just finished the Chronic album was Doggy Style. Pac was in jail by the time he came out of jail. He came off of Against the World as he was incarcerated, so that was his album at the time. Coming into Death Row, came in putting out a 2-disc CD that went 6-time platinum. That skyrocketed him to being the #1 artist on Death Row. He said that he was going to blow Death Row up and make it bigger than what it was. And he did that on his very first album. His commitment to Death Row was 3 albums. He came out with 2, being All Eyes on Me, and then with 1 more left for his demise, finishing that one. That was his obligation to Suge for helping him and getting him out of that situation that he was in Rikers Island. And so he was the #1 artist. Snoop was before, and Dr. Dre was. Pac was Tupac. Like I said, he didn't have a governor. He would go from low to medium to high to over the top on you in a minute. Quick minute.
Okay. Reggie had told me about an incident in around August '96 where he was called because Tupac was trying to take some dats from the Can-Am Studios, which apparently you were not allowed to do. And you mentioning, working, the studio security. Were you one of the ones that was there for that incident, or if not, did you hear about that when it took place?
Yes, absolutely. What happened was we worked shifts with Tupac. There was 4 to 5 of us that were rotating 2 days on, 2 days off with Tupac. And Tupac, now we're talking 95 in the beginning, okay? We're talking now being off of studio working to strictly bodyguarding. Tupac came to the record label. We started gearing more toward the artists as bodyguards, a few selected ones. And again, it was probably 20, 23 on the staff, but there was only a few selected ones that would actually do bodyguarding work. And I was one of them. Leslie Gaulden, Kenneth Archer, Marcus, Cooper, and Kevin Hackey. And we were rotating Tupac. Tupac got tired of the rotation. After the rotation had ended, Reggie approached me, asked me did I want to bodyguard Tupac? And every day, like, yeah, you get one person to relieve you. So you guys work 12 on, 12 off. So I said, well, let me think about that. So, I thought about it, and eventually, I said, okay, I'll try it. I'll do it for. Well, one day, 1996, I told you all of that so I could get to what happened, how that happened. I was at home, and I was off. My shift was from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I was off after 6 p.m. And the studio manager, I take that back, Right Way security manager was Al Gittin. And Reggie had appointed Al manager over all of the bodyguards and all over the security team. So I was at home. I got a phone call, Al Gittins, and Al said, he called me because at that point now I'm Tupac's main bodyguard. So he called me and he said, hey, Frank, he goes, I need you to come up here to the studio because Tupac is like going off, man. It was like uncontrollable, man, because I stuttered. Because I really, really need you to come up here and calm him down, talk to him. You need to, hold on, man. I said, I live in Orange County. I'm 2 hours from that studio. I said, if I were to get in my car and start driving to come up there, I said, Tupac is going to take those DATs, which was the masters, and there's no way he's going to be there by the time I get there. Would you think he's going to wait because I'm coming? I said, no, but I'm not going to drive way up there. I said, because he'll be gone. I said, why won't you give him to him? And he said, well, Spirit said that no artist can take masters out of the studio anymore. I go, what do you mean? I said, they do it all the time. He goes, no, they can't take it. They can't take them out anymore. That's like new. It just came down. I said, man, do we have it on a cassette? Like he done recorded them, to a cassette so he could listen to them? Because Snoop, all of the artists, all of them, would record from the dance to cassette tapes. They would take the cassette tapes and listen to their music so they could see what they wanted to work on, or was everything good with it? Was it ready to go? Is it mastered right or whatever? I have CDs. I have cassette tapes of Tupac's original music that people have never heard because they would leave that stuff in the studio. In the limos, or leave it in the cars and stuff, and we would pick this stuff up and give it to them. They go, I don't need that, or I don't want that. So we end up keeping it, the different bodyguards. That whole thing was all because things were changing. Like your last question about the atmosphere. That's when the atmosphere really started changing. Tupac was one of those type of people, you couldn't tell him what to do. Okay? If he's the artist, he's the top main artist, and he wanted to take his masters out of the studio, who was going to tell him no? Especially somebody that worked security. So he wasn't having it. He wasn't listening to that. It wasn't going to happen. And I wasn't going to drive from Orange County all the way back up to the studio to stop him, because even if I would have made it up there and he wasn't there, what was I going to do? Say, Pac, you can't take that? And I'm working with him. I'm working for him. At that point in time, our relationship was real tight. I wasn't going to tell him what he could take and what he can't take that was his. So that whole thing about those masters not being able to be taken from the studio is because, in my opinion, things had drastically started to change, and Tupac knew what he was doing when he was taking those masters. He knew that he was about to start pulling back from studio and from Death Row. So he was trying to grab his masters as he was, making them. And that's that whole situation right there. And that's when everything started changing. That's your question before this, your previous question, that was a good question. That's how the atmosphere started to change from 95 to 96, and orders like that started coming down. And that was the first one. No one can take masters out of this. Pac wasn't hearing it, wasn't having it, and he was taking his masters because there was something going on. Just hadn't found out or heard enough about it at that point in time, just that it was about to happen.
So did he take his masters that night that you know of?
He walked out that studio with his masters. Now, don't forget, he did over, 200 plus songs. He didn't take all those masters. He took the masters of whatever it was he was working on. Whatever he was presently working on, which I believe was the Machiavelli album. Also, there was an album he was working on called One Nation. So it could have been either or, one of the two of those masters that he was working on. That's what I am assuming. I don't know. And when I saw him the next day, by no means did I bring that up because it was none of my business, and I really didn't care if he took them or not. They weren't mine. It was a moot point by that time.
Okay. A lot of people try to, speculate as to whether he was planning on leaving, whether he wasn't leaving. Some would argue and say, why would you leave somewhere where the lawyer, being David Kinner, and the CEO of the label that you're on, Suge, are in control of your freedom by having put that bond up, the $1.3 million, as that being proof that he wasn't going to leave, because if he were to leave, their obvious reaction would be, okay, we can just humble him and get the bail bond revoked and put him back in prison. So with you being close with Tupac, especially at the time that things started to change, which I'm assuming is around August, late August, September, did he have any talks with you about, you know what, Frank, I'm thinking about this in the right situation for me, I'm considering doing this or that, or did you guys keep it just strictly professional where, you conversed when he spoke and you didn't try to get too involved with what was going on between him and his label situation?
That's a very good question, and I'm going to give you a very good answer. Tupac and I, our relationship, it changed, I would say, over the course of different events that was occurring and happening with him while we would be out to the House of Blues or through the video, working on the set of Gridlock, that he watching my actions, watching the kind of person that I was, because again, I want to take you back to where there was 3 to 4 of us rotating on him. And March of 1996, Tupac had gone to Reggie and Suge and told them that he didn't want this rotation on him anymore. Me as his main bodyguard, primary bodyguard, and I could pick anyone that I wanted to be my relief bodyguard. 23 people. No one would work with Tupac, one, because of his personality. And the only other person that even came close to work with him, Kevin Hackey. So I approached Kevin, asked him did he want to rotate with me. It would be he and I as primaries on Tupac. Kevin said, yeah. Kevin was that type of person. Kevin was cool like that. Kevin was like my brother at the time, calling RoboCop, because he was just like RoboCop, just like it. Anyway, when the relationship changed with Pac and I, as time went on, because I was always there for him. You know, as you said, you read my book, Got Your Back. I titled it back because I had his back. My purpose as a bodyguard was stop him from getting patients. You know, I had enough court cases going already, so I would intervene a lot into fighting, fights that he would get into. I would snatch him out of fights. I would stop him from fighting. I would control that situation and bring it to a halt. He had gotten to the point where he would open up and he would talk with me, especially after we got on the movie set of Gridlock. I was the only one allowed inside the trailer during his filming of Gridlock. He told me that he didn't want none of the other bodyguards coming in his trailer, not even Kevin Hackey, to come in his trailer. He tolerated Kevin. He didn't really care for him, but he tolerated him, put up with him. Told me, he said, you can come in, but your homeboys, they cannot come in. And everyone has to knock on the door. I said, all right. So I went out. I told everyone to tell everyone. So that got around. He stepped up and, you know, took care of some things for my family that I didn't ask him to do. I never asked him for gas. I never asked him to buy me anything to eat. I never asked him for anything. I think that our personalities just clicked. I know what kind of person I was. I had my own. He had a 500 SL. I had a 500 SL. Right? He had a Jag. I had a 300 ZX turbo. And it was like I had my own and I was standing on my own. I think that he saw in my character something that he liked that was in his character. Really do. We did have talks. We talked about a lot of things, a whole lot of things, a lot of personal things. But he didn't have to tell me about him leaving death row or about tired of death row or anything like that, because on the movie set of Gridlock, the management company called me for Euthanasia. That was his company that he had just started. It was called Euthanasia. And his manager of Euthanasia was Doc Fula's mother, Yasmin. And Kevin and I was at work that night on the set of Gridlock. Yasmin called me up, said, Frank, so I'm coming down that talk to you and Kevin. Is Kevin there? I said, yeah, he's here. He says, okay, ask him to stay. Don't leave. Talk to the both of you. Okay, she goes, but make sure you don't go. I said, all right. So he got down there quickly, called Kevin and I to the side. Doc was in his trailer. It's in the evening time. It's dark. Told us that there were some things going on, that we had to step up our game, make sure, be careful, watch Tupac very closely. Like, don't let him out of your sight. Make sure, attention to everything that you got him. Got his back. She said, Pac just called an audit. She said, yeah, we're about to audit death row, David Kenner. Wow. Okay. So that was like the first time that we were put on notice to be, on top of our game, to be alert. And it was a little bit like shocking, because it was like, wow, what's this about? Because Pac never said anything. He never said anything. He didn't say anything to me many times when he could have. Keep in mind, I was his bodyguard. I was his friend. I was just telling someone this earlier. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was a staff sergeant. I had people that worked under me. when I worked for Orange County Sheriff's, I worked in the jail, and I had people that was under me. But I also associated with those people, and they were my friends. We were at worked, talked about work. We didn't talk about friendship stuff. When we're out off of work, partying and hanging out, then we talked as friends. We acted like friends. And that's the kind of relationship Pac and I had. When I was on the job, doing my job. If he wanted to bring up something and wanted to personally talk to me about it, I'm a listening ear, and I'm a talking mouth. We'll talk about it, and I'm going to listen to you. He never brought anything up because it wasn't any of my business, because that was his personal financial business. Only time Tupac and I ever talked about finances was once I was at his house, and his maid was cleaning up and everything, and he had paid her. He gave her like $200. Was that a tip? Like, no, that's what I pay her. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, like every time she, like, dude, you make more. I mean, she make more than me. He goes, what? I go, I said, yeah, I work with you all day. I don't even make that much, And it was like real. That was real. And he and I, we joked about that once. His personal financial status, only thing I knew about it was every Friday he got $5,000. He would tell me, call Roy, who worked up at the death row office, and say, tell Roy I need $5. And that was like clockwork every Friday before we would leave the set. He would say, Frank, call Roy. I need $5. And Roy would have a courier or himself, wherever we were at, bring me an envelope with $5,000 in it. I would give it to Pac every Friday. And that was like his spending money, right? So I think he had got to the point to where he was tired of that, because he had a commitment with Death Row. And I said this earlier. He had a 3-album commitment. Well, he knocked 2 of them out when he did All Eyes on Me. His third one was Machiavelli. Now, All Eyes on Me had already gone 6-time platinum, which is what, 1 million copies is platinum, 500,000 is gold, so that was 6 million CDs he had sold, and he was getting $5,000 a week. It was all in Death Row's name. And he was told that the reason that they were in Death Row's name was because he had too many cases, and he was getting into, little bit spats here and there, and you don't want to get your stuff taken. You don't want to get sued. So this is how we do it. We put it in the record label's name, and it's protected. And I think that everyone knows that he was just too smart of a person to continue to buy into that theory, because nothing was in his name. And he was the number one artist after All Eyes on Me came out, making the most money. It was second, he was first, as you had asked me earlier. He didn't have to tell us, because his management company that he was starting, his new label was going to be Machiavelli Records. He had already made up the T-shirts. I have a T-shirt to this day of Machiavelli Records. That was going to be his new record label. Euthanasia was going to be his new company. He was leaving Death Row. That's why he called an audit. About a week later, my homeboy that I told you was the office manager, he called me up and he said, Frank, like, you're getting fired. I was like, what? Like, yeah, you're getting fired. I go, what are you talking about? Like, man, Tupac just sent a letter. I got it right here. He goes, I'll make a copy of it and give it to you. He goes, but I got a letter right here that he no longer is requesting right-way security for his security. I was like, are you serious? Like, yeah. So I said, get the letter from you. idle in the morning. Yeah, get it tomorrow. I'll give it to you. I read the letter. Sure enough, his signature no longer requested security. So obviously,
is that the same time that he allegedly fired David Kenner as his lawyer?
Yes, absolutely. He had just fired David Kenner as his attorney, which was a conflict of interest from the beginning. So when I got the letter, I said, Pot, said, what's going on, man? I heard I'm getting fired. He was like, what? So said you getting fired? Said, I saw the letter that you sent to the office. He goes, oh, man, don't worry about that, Frank. You going with me. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, you going with me. I'm starting my own company, my own record label. My first album I'm putting out is going to be called One Nation because I'm leaving Death Row. And I was like, so I ain't got to worry about my job. He's like, no, you going with me, nigga. That's how I knew he was leaving. He personally told me that because I got the letter. I have the letter.
And what month was this all going down?
August. This was August. I think it's dated like August between the 6th and the 12th or something like that. That's when the letter was dated. I have it. I still have the letter right now.
Okay, because there's the interview out there where he speaks on he's going to do Machiavelli Records and whatnot, but it was going to be an imprint of Death Row. So is what he told you basically that him and Suge had that agreement, and then once the audit hit, he was just going to say, fuck it, I'm going to take Machiavelli Records completely separate and do my own thing?
Yeah, because you got to realize something about Tupac. One, he felt like he was being cheated. He wasn't getting what was his. Nothing was in his name. He was getting $5,000 a month. He was irate about that. Okay? Tupac wore and showed his emotions on his sleeve. Everyone knows that. Tupac either liked you, loved you, and that was it. There was no gray area, no in between. He had his mind made up after he decided to audit Death Row. If I'm going to audit a company I'm doing business with that's distributing one of my documentaries, if I'm going to audit them, that means I don't trust their accounting. That means that something's wrong. That means that I'm concerned about my money. That's the only purpose and reason for an audit. Why do you think the IRS audits you? Because they think something is wrong. So they do an audit on you to make sure that everything is straight and not crooked. So Tupac wanted to make sure his mind that everything was straight and not crooked with all eyes on me, because he wasn't seeing the royalty money that he should have been seeing. The excuses started coming down. Oh, it cost $500,000. You just shot this video, that video, this video, that video. Those videos cost money, and Pac was putting out some videos. But the record label, if you knew this or not, they charge the artist back for those videos that they're making. Those cars.
And studio time, correct?
And studio time, absolutely. Okay? So $5,000 a week and the videos, studio time, all of that still wasn't amounting to $6 million and still climbing. Albums sold, CDs at $19.98 a pop is what they were going for. So the audit is what sparked everything, because he felt he was being cheated. So if I feel I'm being cheated and I do an audit, and if I find anything that ain't right about this audit, what am I going to do? Stay or leave? I'm going to leave. What am I going to stay for? I don't trust you, obviously. And that's where he was at. That's why he did what he did, and that's why he was doing what he was going to do.
Okay. And to the people that would refuse to believe that, okay, people that say, no, he wasn't going to leave, for whatever reason, they're convinced he wasn't going to leave. Their main argument, and I'll present it to you, Frank, and you give me your take on it, is if he did that and he was going to leave, then why, number one, was he in Vegas with Suge, rolling like that with Suge after all that had gone down, with him firing Kenner, with him starting the audit, and him having his exit strategy?
Okay. Man. Y'all, all the fans on my homeboy's Risky website need to see my documentary. Holding it, I'm plugging it right now. Tupac Assassination, Reckoning, Conspiracy or Revenge. And I know, I hope that is in this interview, because I unveiled and revealed all of that on documentaries. Okay. Tupac told one of the bodyguards on September the 6th. They were shooting the video that Friday. Toss it up. Mm-hmm. They were walking Pac to the airplane. Pac said, "Dead man walking. Really don't want to go to Las Vegas. It's against my better judgment, but I'm going to go ahead and go, because I'm a dead man walking." Tupac had an eeriness, feeling that something was going to happen in Las Vegas. He did not want to go, but he was obligated to go. That's why he went. He did not go to Las Vegas because he just wanted to go. It was that I'm going to go ahead and go. It's like that decision that you don't want to make, but you make it, and then you wish you wouldn't have made it, right? In our case, it wouldn't be death, but in a case, as an example of, I'll give you a good example. This happened to me. I'll give you a better example. I was on my way to a funeral. This was in March of 1996. And it was raining really bad. And one of my partners died. And I was going to drive my 300ZX, A3, which was a two-door. And when I walk out of my out of my door to get into the car, I looked at the car, and then I opened up the garage. My 4Runner was sitting there. And then I said, nah, I'm not going to drive my car. Take my 4Runner. So I got in my 4Runner. On my way to the funeral, I got into a car accident. Totaled my 4Runner. I bent the steering wheel. I grabbed and held onto it so hard. Right? Pour it up. Pour it up. A guy ran a red light. I T-boned him. I had a choice. And I made the choice of not taking the smaller car, which would have killed me, driving down that road as fast as I was going at 55 miles an hour, and T-boned a car that ran a red light because I had a green light. I T-boned him. And I taken that car, that smaller car, I believe I would have killed myself. My choice was not to take it, so I took the other car. Tupac's choice was not to go, but he decided to go. He didn't want to go. Didn't really want to go. Didn't really want to go, but decided to go. What did it cost him? By not following his gut feeling about what he had said to one of the guards that walked him to the plane. Dead man walking. And he was like, why do you say that, Pac? Don't say that. He was like, I really don't want to go to Las Vegas. And he changed his mind and he went. Had he not gone to Las Vegas that night, maybe it would have been another day, another time else. But what was lined up for him happened. Regardless, nobody was going to intervene to stop him going to Las Vegas because he had made up his mind to go. nobody was going to stop the plan that was already put into motion. Because they had been put into motion the day that he was born. From the day that we are born, God knows the day that we're going to die. And that was the day Tupac was going to be shot, succumb to those bullet wounds, and die the following week. Tupac did not want to go to Las Vegas. Tupac was leaving death row. Now, there's a rumor, and it's not even a rumor because it was true. There was Craig Light, I believe, something like that is his last name. They were doing the One Nation album together.
Craig Mack,
thank you. They were doing the album together. I was sitting in the trailer with Pac and him when they were talking about it. And Pac had, they were talking about the Euthanasia Machiavelli label that he was going to put it under. He said, we're going to put this under my new label. Okay. Now I know that there's talk about there was going to be a Death Row East and a Death Row West. I've heard that throughout the course of the years gone by. Prior to that, I had never heard about a Death Row East. About it, I wasn't privy to knowing about that or hearing about it. But to answer your question, as I did, he was leaving. He went to Las Vegas against his own better judgment. He changed his mind. He went with Suge that night, not because Suge so much wanted him to, because he changed his mind against his own better judgment.
Okay. And I want to ask you, touch on briefly a subject that not a lot of people want to talk about. They don't want to acknowledge it. I don't know if it's because of the mom. I don't know if it's out of respect for him. But when he got to death row, obviously all the fans know, everybody that was there knows, everybody in the industry knows. He started shouting out MOB. He got the tattoo on his back of his arm. Anybody out there knows what MOB is and what it's involved with. Do you feel, in your personal opinion, that him associating himself with that organization, gang, group, whatever you want to call it, do you feel that that led to the outcome that happened in Vegas, or do you feel, as you stated earlier, that that was a plan that was in motion, that regardless what had happened, that was his fate?
What does MOB mean to you? What's the,
to me,
yeah.
To me personally, it means the mob gang, money, organization, and business.
No, it doesn't. It means money over bitches.
Okay, so he wasn't gang affiliated whatsoever.
No, absolutely not. 1,000%. No. MOB is 662 on a phone keypad also, right?
Mm-hmm.
662 was Suge Knight's club, right?
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas. Oh, wait a minute. We'll watch Tupac Assassination. Here's their revenge and reckoning. Suge Knight didn't own 662. Suge Knight renting club 662. Told everybody he owned it. 662, ironically, in 1989, was the exact same club. It was called Botany. He used to bodyguard this Iranian prince in 1989. That was the exact same club he used to go to. Now let's talk about things being ironic. How ironic is that? 1989, I was bodyguarding an Iranian prince, and that was his club of choice. Loved that club. It was called Botany. Then you fast forward to 1995, I end up in that same club again, realizing later that that club was at Club Botany. Now it's being operated by Suge Knight. who named it 662, which meant M.O.B. How many times have you heard Tupac refer to M.O.B. as a gang? I've never heard him refer to it as a gang. In his lyrics, there's this money over bitches.
Right. And this won't go in the interview, but this is just between me and you. The argument could be said that back then at that time, rappers, Snoop, whatnot, they did not flaunt their gang. They didn't come right out and say, Snoop would say DPGC or, the LBC. They would not come out and say, like on a record today, Snoop will flat out say Crip, or Rolling 20s or whatnot. So some people may say, and I'm not, and when I'm saying this, please don't take it as I'm trying to argue with you or get you to say anything you don't want to say or even say that you're wrong, because I just want to present to you what the people that are going to doubt that are going to say. You know what I mean? That way you can already have an answer for them. So one could say at that time they didn't flaunt the gang affiliations as openly as they would nowadays. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I completely know where you're going. Completely understand where you're leading to. Because Snoop was notorious for throwing out LBC, DPG, Crips affiliated through initials, with the acronym actually being, affiliated to Long Beach Crips or Crip related. I remember an incident, House of Blues. Crips came up to sitting there. Just got there. Crips. This happened twice. Once with me, and then another time with the same bodyguard that was with him during this rotation schedule that we had. Crips came up to him. It was a different situation that night versus the night I was with him. The guys approached him, started talking to him, and right away, recognized him. Stepped back a little bit, put my hand. It was, the club was dark. I stepped back a little bit and got my hand positioned where I needed it, just in case. So I'm listening to the conversation. Homeboy asked Pac, goes, "So, with you, Pac? Who you representing, man? We be Crips, and you be hanging out with Bloods. Death Row got Crips and Bloods working with them. What color you representing, homie?" Pac said, "I represent green." And it was classic, dude. It was classic. He said, "I represent green. That's the color of money. M.O.B., money over bitches, nigga." Now, that's what I can testify to, because that's what I knew and that's what I heard with my own ears. If it meant anything else, if he meant it to be anything else, so be it. That was on him. I never heard him in his lyrics say anything about Bloods, representing Bloods, nor did he wear a lot of red that represented himself being affiliated with Bloods. Snoop wore more blue than anyone. So what did that mean? And he pretty much in his lyrics represented and said where he was from, what was up. So that's the argument I throw back at the affiliation with Pac and MOB. He didn't wear red. He didn't act as if he was a Ma Piru blood or blood, period.
Okay. Bringing up Snoop, there is a spoken of altercation between Snoop and Tupac in New York.
Let's do this. Let's go back before New York, okay? Because to be fair, I'm only interrupting you to be fair, because that beef between Pac and Snoop happened before New York, right? This is how it happened. We were scheduled to do the Roseanne Barr show. Snoop and Pac had a dual single, Two of America's Most Wanted. They had already shot the video and done all of that. The song was off the charts. It was bumping. We were at the Penthouse in L.A. off of Wilshire. We were at the very top. Snoop had one wing, Pac had the other wing, meaning one side of that top building was Tupac's penthouse. The other side, when you came off the elevator, if you made a left, you would go to Pac's. If you made a right, you would go to Snoop's. Those were the only two penthouses up there. Snoop and Pac supposedly performed together the Roseanne Barr show. And Snoop was over at Pac's penthouse, and Pac and he were talking. He said, so you know what time you got to be there, and you're going to be there, and this and that, whoop, whoop, whoop. Snoop was like, yeah. Well, Snoop never showed up. So we had already gone to the rehearsal. Snoop's supposed to show up for the rehearsal. He wasn't there. So we go back after rehearsal to the penthouse. But before we went back, this is what was funny. Ice-T was at the rehearsal. And I think he was going to be part of hosting the show or doing something with them. And when we went back to the penthouse, all the way going back, Pac was irate, pissed off. And he was talking about Snoop. So, wow, he didn't come for the rehearsal. He lied, blah, 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 blah. Call your homeboys, Frank. Call your homeboys. My homeboys was Snoop's bodyguards, Kenneth and Marcus. So I called Kenneth up, and I said, Kenny, what's up, man? I go, Pac is like, tripping, dude. Snoop didn't show up for the rehearsal. He goes, yeah, I know, because we still over in the penthouse. Because he said he wasn't going. And I said, what? But, dude, he didn't show up for the rehearsal, man. What Pac going to do? They supposed to perform. Pac did his parts and everything. He says, I don't know. He said he ain't going. So I hey, Pac. And he said, Snoop said he ain't going. F that motherfucker. I was like, wow. What's up? This was like new. This was new. So when we go back that night, Pac and Ice-T hosted the show. They performed. And if you remember, if you saw it, they did a Karen Carpenter song. And they made a joke out of it. So Snoop and Pac didn't perform that night. And from that time on, that time forward, Pac was like done with Snoop. He like, this nigga turned on me. And if you look at any of the following couple of weeks went by, and when they went to the MTV Awards, if you look at any of the pictures, any of the footage of Pac and Snoop sitting there next to one another being interviewed by MTV, Snoop just is holding the mic, looking straight ahead with like no expression on his face at all. Pac is just like whoop, 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 whoop. Just interviewing and like going off. He never said a word. He sat there like this nigga's little brother. I can't open my mouth. Just like gave all control over to Pac. But he was...
He used as a scapegoat for that whole situation of the shooting and whatnot. Do you feel the weight was put on you, the blame was put on you for that whole situation?
Is this the next question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want to keep going about Snoop. If you got more about Snoop, go ahead.
No. That was it. I barely could hear you. You just started talking. I was like, man. It was like, did the signal drop? Are we still there?
Sorry
I didn't hear you. That's all it was. You know what? In my book, Got Your Back, there's a chapter. It's called Scapegoat. And I wrote that chapter because I felt as if I was being thrown through the bus. I felt that way because it was like the finger was being pointed at me and I was wrongfully being blamed. It wasn't for the shooting because I had nothing to do with the shooting. I couldn't have controlled what was going to happen. I didn't know, Pac was going to not. If we back up and go back to April of 1996, there was a fight, an altercation that happened in California at the Lakewood Mall between Orlando Anderson and one of Suge's homeboys. And ironically, that night at the fight, Orlando Anderson was standing where he was standing next to a palm tree, and the same guy he got into the fight with at the Lakewood Mall whispered in Tupac's ear, and Pac took off running, ran over there, and Orlando Anderson was standing there, and in the fight, they started fighting. I snatched Pac up off of him, put him against the wall. By that time, the entourage came. That's where you see all of the footage from the MGM. Everybody's like kicking and stuff. I was down. Mm-hmm. There's your setup right there. That's your patsy. Orlando Anderson was a patsy. That whole thing was staged. It was set up. From April of 1996, September of 1996. How ironic, again, in that example, that from April, September, the same guy that got into a fight with Orlando Anderson in a mall would be at the Mike Tyson, Bruce Seldon fight that night. And Orlando Anderson would be standing there waiting on Tupac. He whispered in his ear and ran over there to him. Pac ran over there to him. So, from 1996 to 2011, I see that whole situation completely different than the way I originally thought that it had happened, gone down. So I wrote a book because I had something to say. I wrote a book because there's two sides to a story. It was their side and my side. My side, I told my story. My book has never been discredited, and I never said anything in it that didn't happen, wasn't true. Mm-hmm. And I never had one legal problem over the writing of my book. John 8:32 says, "Who shall set you free?" So I'm free from any wrongful blame of being a scapegoat that they try to point and make me not happening. God be with you. Who can be against you?
Okay. So you come out with the book. You come out with some DVDs. All have been very well received from the fan base, from the Tupac fan base. Can people look forward to new things coming down the pipeline soon from you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a hallmark year. It's the 40th birthday of Tupac, June 16th. 15th death anniversary of his year, of his death this year. I'm re-releasing my book, the hardback cover as a paperback cover. That's going to be a collector's item, because the hardback cover was a bestseller collector's item book. So I'm re-releasing that. I'm coming out with a couple other projects, a new 15-year DVD, another really big project that may see the big screen. Mm-hmm. So there's three things pipeline coming out this year.
Okay.
For the death anniversary. Absolutely.
And if people want to find more info about you, want to read up on you, what's a website they can go to? Do you have your official website up and running that they can check out?
Yeah, I have my own website, and the book is going to be available through Amazon.com. Also associated with other Tupac-related websites. I'm doing an interview for this website right now, bombfirst.com. Be able to find out what's going on, what's happening right there. Truth About Tupac, that website. My own website, which is www.frank-alexander.com. Everything will be linked, website to website, to find out and keep people up to date, fans, everything that I'm doing, what directions I'm moving for the 15th year death anniversary of my friend and my brother, Tupac. So.
Okay. Before we wrap this up, is there anything you would like to touch on or put out there that you would like the listeners to hear?
You know, we are given life, and there's three things we do with the life that we're given. We live, we enjoy everything in between, and we die. And what we do with our life is the free will that God has given us. How we live our life in between before we reach the end of it. We have free will to enjoy, to venture, learn, to make better men, women out of ourselves and grow into ourselves. God has given that to us. Some people have wisdom. Those that do not, find it. Where you find wisdom, get on your knees, God, for wisdom. Make yourself a better person. What happened to Tupac didn't have to happen. But what was going to happen to Tupac, no one had control over it, other than the people or the individuals that set it up to happen, or the person that pulled the trigger that killed him, took his life. But what was going to happen to him? It was faith, predestined. It was going to happen. It was going to be. He was given June 16th, 77, to born. And then he was given 25 years to live his life and to do everything that he wanted to do and everything that he wanted to accomplish in between that time where he was going to meet his death. You're going to live, going to enjoy your free will, live it to the best and the fullest your ability in the way that you want to live. That's why God gave us free will. But death is inevitable. It's going to happen. Died December 13th, 1996. He was given a day to be born. He was given life to live, given his death day. No different than myself, different than you, different than any of us. So I say we make choices, choose wisely. Know that wisdom, you only get it from asking for it, believing in God, believing it comes from Him, and knowing that there's a tomorrow. Every day is a new day. Every day of grace, blessings, and a new start all over. I myself have been blessed, been given a great life. I didn't ask to be Tupac's bodyguard. I didn't know Tupac. Didn't really care a whole lot, one way or another, about him or going to the record label. Mm-hmm. But he became a friend. He became someone that learned to love, respect at his age that he was. For him to have been ahead of his time, different than a lot of others that passed before him. Jimi Hendrix, Elvis Presley, all of those other fallen entertainers, musicians, that was ahead of their time. Tupac was truly ahead of his time in rap. There will never, ever be another Elvis Presley with the voice that he had that made him the king of rock and roll. There will never, ever be. I've never heard a rapper like Tupac or Maru Shakur. From what he rapped on, came from with his heart, the rappers that we listen to today. I said in my book, I take off my hat, that young, brave black brother. Because learn generation to love him and to respect him. Look at the legacy he left behind. Look at the people that missed him and love him. And look at the fans. Believe he's alive. I just say, as I always do, pray that he's in heaven, because I know that when I die, that I will be and reach other loved ones. Pray that there's so much more to him now that he's there, that it would just be loving and beautiful to be with him and all of my other loved ones. So,
Right.
I said, we were secretly woven together, earth. So, but with our own eyes, but with his own eyes, saw our bodies being formed or born. He had written in his book everything that we would close with that. Great the interview. All the fans out there, one God, always. Rest in